coming to today's Play Attention special webinar with our guest host, Deon Visser. I appreciate all of you being here today to learn about how to evaluate supplements. Now, a couple of things before we start. We are recording this event, so if at any time you have to jump off or you need to share this with any staff members or family members, you'll have the recording following this webinar so that you'll be able to replay the full webinar. If at any time you do have questions, please do type your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. That way, Deon will be able to address your questions as we proceed through. At this time, I'm going to turn the webinar over to Deon Visser. Hope you all enjoy.
Hi guys, good evening and from my side, and what a pleasure it is to be talking to you about supplements, etc. A little bit of background before we get going. I'm a professor in chemistry in a university in South Africa. So if I talk too fast or you don't understand my pronunciations, please feel free to pop it into the Q&A box and tell me to slow down or something. I also asked Gwen to do the same because I tend to get excited and get carried away with all the exciting things that I want to share with you. Well, I think we've got the formalities out of the way. Hello, this is me, Deon, and I want to jump right off and share with you a fantastic product that just came out from the States that it's called Tagetes Minutai. It's it was initially developed only for ADHD, and it reduces fidgeting, as you can see, by 39%, improves concentration. It was developed at the University of Graceland, and I'm proud to say that I played a small role in that. It's FDA approved. It's got no side effects. But what we saw when we started developing this was that we also it affects weight loss in a positive way for obese people. 15 kgs now, that is about 6 to 8 pounds in 2 weeks. And then we also found that it has cancer reducing effects. It's already in phase 9. The studies that we're doing, the clinical studies. But we only have a limited amount available because it's such at this stage, still very difficult to extract from the plant, Tagetes Minutai. Now, I know I rushed through this. I think it's a little bit of nerves as well, but it's not true. Nothing of this is true. But I wanted to start this, and this is how I start many of my presentations to people, is just to show them how easily we can start believing somebody whenever they're on the screen or when we read something in a magazine. Because Tagetes Minutai is a brush or a plant found in South Africa. We call it khaki boss. It's not something I can translate directly, but it means it's not really true. It's actually a direct translation for talking BS. University of Memphis, it's not there. Cancer studies, there's no such thing as phase 9. And yeah, always limited amount available. It happens that many of us actually get pulled in to bad advertisements, or actually good advertisements that are bad for us. And I want to show tonight that we need to start thinking about a lot of things surrounding supplements and herbal extracts and the safety and the more important, the efficiency of these things. So without any further ado, let me just get this. Just a few things about South Africa. Yes, we are known for our wildlife, elephants and lion and etc. But we also have, and I want to just pull your attention to, this is the city of Cape Town seen from the air. This is one of the stadiums that we built for the Soccer World Cup in 2010. So we're a unique country in the sense that we have a lot of third world businesses and buildings, etc. But we also have a lot of first world, but we also have a lot of third world things or challenges like poverty, etc. And saying that, it also means that in South Africa, at the moment, we don't have a body like you guys have down in America, like the FDA. Our supplement industry is very poorly regulated. Unfortunately, that means, when I say poorly regulated, I actually mean it's not regulated at all. You can actually say something in terms of supplements in South Africa and get away with it forever. What this means, unfortunately, is that African countries have become a dumping ground for European from the East, and of course, unfortunately, from the USA as well. So I'm saying this so that you can understand that I'm going to talk about a lot of companies or certain examples from the South African perspective. But many of the products that I'm going to mention actually comes from the States or from Europe or from the Far East. And they end up in South Africa and people start using them, and we are trying to get rid of them every now and again. So I'm going to share a few things with you tonight, and I really hope that some of you will take, that at least every one of you gets something to take home from this talk. If you have questions, please pull them in. I'll try and answer them as I go along. I am a little bit ADHD myself, so if I do get distracted, Gwen will help me. And if I don't have time or don't have the answers to the questions, I am in a good position to find out what I can, and all the answers will be submitted on email to you. So what we're going to do is we're going to look a little bit at target marketing. We're going to try and understand the scientific process in publishing scientific work. And then I'm going to show you a few bad examples from my home soil. Some of them are not or were not established there in South Africa. As I said, they come from overseas. And then lastly, I will try and give you some advice to help you to evaluate advertisements, supplementation, and even how to advise your kids on how to use it. I have to say it's not as easy as just reading, I was reading a label on a product. It's just not that easy, unfortunately. I wish it was, because there's a lot of scientific language. Most of us don't understand Latin. If we come to herbal supplements, many companies put the Latin name on there, and we don't have a clue what it is. And when you're standing in an aisle in a supermarket or wherever you are not going to read the label in Latin. You are not going to open Google and try and find out what it is. You see something, it's going to create weight loss, and unfortunately, you're going to try that home. So let's just look at an overview of the supplement industry at the moment. There's a spelling error there on the first point. No, it's not. $100 billion worldwide is spent on supplements. In the USA itself, it's about $37 billion a year is being spent on supplements. So 2 out of 3 Americans use supplements. In the UK, 1 out of 4 use herbal medicines. People really trust these products. They think, or they feel confident that it's safe, that there's quality, and that it's effective. 84% of people. The industry is growing and growing and growing, and the reason is that we are looking at the population that's getting older and older. They have joint pains, they have eye problems, like these age-generated diseases. As you get older, you struggle to see more and more. And of course, the bones gets softer, and we want to supplement in order to prevent things like osteoporosis. Of course, another point there is that consumers are becoming aware that they want to prevent disease rather than cure it. And to me, that's a great idea. I mean, nobody wants to be sick with something like cancer or heart disease if you can prevent it. But are supplements really the answer? And I'm not going to give you the answer tonight. You are going to make your own conclusions from my talk. So let's first look at marketing. And when you talk about target marketing, many companies will tell you there are 4 P's. And the first P is product. So companies develop product lines to reach bigger markets. And a fantastic example is Coke Zero. You know, Coke Zero came about because Coke, the Coca-Cola company, found that men, grown men, did not like to buy Diet Coke. It was just not for us. And you can see I'm also a little bit of a big guy. We just didn't want to be seen buying a Diet Coke, a soft drink. So the company came up with the idea of Coke Zero. And suddenly all the men feel better about it. They're not buying Diet something, they are buying a zero something. To launch it, Coca-Cola sponsored NCAA baseball tournament, $30 million just to launch the product, and the rest is history. It was published in the Sports Business Journal. Anybody wants the link, I can send it to you. Let me get the next slide. Okay, so, there's a space there that shouldn't be there. The next P in target marketing is place. Any company wants to grow its business, and the only way to do it is to get it into new places. In the Second World War, the Pepsi company started up a syrup factory in Mexico, so they could have a constant supply of sugar, etc., so they can make their product. And they were able to supply the soldiers, who were in the war. And from there, they actually started building their market strongly, as fighting against Coca-Cola itself. Price, of course, is also an important factor in target marketing. Oh, by the way, anybody who wants the slides, you are welcome to have them, and you can just ask Gwen, and they will definitely send it to you. All the links to the research I've done, and you can have that. It's not a problem. But companies will use price to get us all as consumers involved. Like the $1 meal at McDonald's, I see it's in Europe. Let me just show you. This is the European one, somewhere in Europe. And Singapore even, everybody's having a nice little $1 meal or $1 menu. Of course, then there is promotion. One of my favorite shows, actually, I just love seeing people perform strange acts, like something like America's Got Talent. And always you will see that there's a sponsored product with the label turned towards the cameras, and all these wonderful people are drinking from it. And so product placement is really an important factor. Here's just an important or interesting bit of research. Obese children watch more television than other people. You can expect that. They're in front of the TV more than kids who are more active. But it means they're almost twice as much exposed to food ads on TV. And that, to me, is where things start getting shady, don't you think? So another thing that we need to understand is peer review. What is peer review, and why is it important? Now, this magazine is a magazine in South Africa. It's called You Magazine. It's a magazine that discusses anything from celebrities, mostly from the US, and their lives. And then every now and again, you'll see a nice advertisement somewhere. And that's just a normal magazine. On the other hand, you have scientific journals like Nature, which, in my opinion, is the top publication in terms of scientific literature in the world today. They have a large range of nature-related magazines, ranging from chemistry to psychology and so on. And the thing is that when something is published in Nature, it was reviewed, and this is a simple understanding peer review. It was reviewed by other people who are specialists in the field. Whenever it's published, mostly it then means it's something that you can read and trust more than something you would read in a general magazine. Mostly in this field, you can get away with saying whatever it is that you want. And I'll show you some things that's happening on the internet here in South Africa, and you can actually check it out yourself. Okay. So let's talk about the supplement industry. Where are the target markets mostly? And I'm talking from a South African perspective, but I know from experience, I've been to the US many, many times, that children, sports, ADHD, and disease or fear of disease are the main target markets for the supplement industry. And folks, you need to understand me. I'm not saying these companies are all bad. I'm just saying we need to be careful who we believe. We need to be careful on the information that we trust. And this is the object of my talk tonight. This is what I want to teach you or help you to try and help yourself. So this little report from YTV Kids and Tweens says that children in the household influence breakfast choices, lunch choices, family meals, clothing purchases, software purchases, computer purchases, entertainment, and holidays. So our children affects all these choices, and I understand that. But it also means that if you and I know it, that marketing companies know it, and they are going to aim their campaigns not to you. You are not the target, your children are. And to me, that's a little bit of irresponsible. Okay, so let's start talking about supplements. And let's start talking about how safe they are. We all feel that supplements are safe because they are natural. But did you know that in the last year, US hospitals had about 20,000 visits? Doesn't sound like a lot, but people who were in trouble after using supplements, which are supposed to be natural and harmless. That's quite a high number then. And mainly in that field, it was the energy and diet supplements. I can tell you stories about natural, but anyways, we'll get to that a little bit later. But this is a very recent article on the internet, 2018 dated, where the FDA has found a Chinese supplement with high levels of lead in it. Now, lead poisoning is a terrible disease. It attacks your nervous system. You will start having lame hands or arms or even legs, and it's a terrible way to die because there's no way that we're going to get the lead out of the system again. It actually attaches itself around the nervous system. So why must we be careful when we're looking at supplements? Well, I mentioned lead. There's also arsenic. Most of you would know arsenic. It's another form of poisoning that you can get. But most people don't think about the contraindications. In other words, what's going to happen if I'm taking normal medicines with a herbal product or a vitamin? And it hasn't been studied. So there's not a lot of studies on it. So we don't know how safe it is. Of course, if you're taking products to lose weight or to enhance your sporting abilities, how do you know that the stimulants that are in there are really safe for you? And allowed if you're doing in sport? Is it safe for you to use in terms of if you do have to get a urine test, is it going to be put you on hold, or are you going to be able to compete for the rest of your life? But there's something else also. How consistent are the formulations of these herbal products? I mean, what happens is that I'm going to take an example, and I hope you guys can relate to it. In South Africa, we've got a specific type of tea. We call it red bush tea. It's not like English tea. That doesn't contain caffeine, and it's quite safe. But even red bush tea from adjoining farms, having two farms next to each other, the composition of the active ingredients in the tea, the biological ingredients, differ from farm to farm who are actually farming next to each other. So it's very difficult for companies to make sure that every pill or supplement that goes out there has the same consistency. It normally doesn't happen. Another question that you have to ask is, is there any quality control measures in place to make sure that I'm not getting poisoned with something that I don't want? And we'll talk about it a little bit later on as well. Okay, so let me show you some examples from the South African market and share some stories with you that hopefully you will enjoy to share with your friends and maybe get them to talk a little bit or to think at least before they start using stuff. So a couple of years ago, about 15 years ago, I was invited to the launching of a product, a new healthcare range by this company, Anique, in South Africa. They are actually a red bush company. They used to make only facial care products. And about 15 years ago, they went into the supplement market as well. And we were invited to the launch of their first product called Zero Tox. It's a product that they claim that will detox you from, heavy metal poisoning, any toxins in your body, antioxidative stuff. And, of course, you will lose a little bit of weight. And if you have cancer, it can treat the cancer. How do I know that? Because they actually had an American visiting us here in Bloemfontein in the center of South Africa. The guy was at that stage, he was very well spoken, as all marketing people are. And the interesting thing was that he was introduced having 12 diplomas and degrees at age 40. So I was very impressed with the CV. I haven't seen the CV, but I mean, what they said was very impressive. And he started off like all good salesmen and telling us how it is important that you eat 5 to 9 different servings of fruit and vegetables a day. And if you're not, you're probably going to have a little problem here and there in terms of, levels of vitamins and minerals that you need or require for optimum health. And then he went into selling Zero Tox. And he named the active ingredient in Zero Tox, he named it clinoptilolite. And I haven't heard of it before. And I was actually anxious for him to end so that I can go and read up on it at home. Got back home, I hardly greeted my wife and went immediately to my lab and my library resources and started to read up on clinoptilolite, the active ingredient that removes all these toxins. And I found out that this guy with 12 diplomas and degrees didn't actually know even how to correctly pronounce the active ingredient, which he claimed was an active ingredient. It is clinoptilolite, not clinoptilolite. It's a zeolite. Now, some of you might be in science, you might know that zeolite is a form of sand. So I made this little slide there on rocks. I'm telling people you're eating sand or drinking sand. And the whole idea was actually of this supplement is actually based on fantastic animal science. And they found that in Africa, in the real third world countries, that when animal food and plant material lies in the sun for a little while, some biological processes start to develop ammonia, NH3. And these things are, of course, harmful for animals. It kills them. Chicken eggs become soft, etc. It's terrible. So when you add these little sand particles, which looks like this, they've got these holes in them. And in these holes, the sand particle itself is positively charged. So what happens is the ammonia is trapped inside the holes. If you add the sand into the food, it actually traps the ammonia. The animals can still eat the food. It passes right through their system, no damage from ammonia. But humans don't eat ammonia. Many of the we have a South African product called Handy Andy that they use to clean toilets, and it's ammonia based. And I always tell my audience, I've never had the feeling to eat a little bit of ammonia. I guess most people. In fact, I would be interested to meet somebody who's willing to eat ammonia. So they based everything on this, and from there they start selling worldwide. Let me show you another example. Now, this is a company that actually comes from the States that's also very active here in South Africa. They're one of the multi-level network marketing companies. And they had a lawsuit in Texas a couple of years ago where they were fined $1 million for making false claims on their literature. And the thing here is, after that, some of the specialists in the field of glyconutrients, Schnarr and Fries, they're really biological scientists, actually brought, and you can go read it yourself, but they brought this article out in a scientific journal where they slammed this specific company and said, look, we are not associated with them as they claim. The company actually claimed that these guys were working for them. Things like that. I always say, glyconutrients, you might as well just eat a bunch of white sugar. It's cheaper than the glyconutrients they're trying to sell you because there's no evidence, scientific evidence that it works. This is a South African company product that's also supplied worldwide. It comes from Switzerland, if I remember correctly, or Sweden. And just look at what this product does. Counteracts fatigue, beneficial during pregnancy, memory and concentration, normal growth, immune, stamina. It just goes on. It can help for everything, folks, even for ingrown toenails. Let me repeat that. My dog was barking. Ingrown toenails. It's just crazy. But when you look at what it contains, it's a plasmolysed herbal yeast, and then it's got some binding agents in there. And when you read the science, this was in the British Journal of Sports Medication, 1990, these findings suggest that the effects of the tested food supplement on these parameters are negligible with respect to improvement of the immune system of long-distance runners. So it just tells you, but most of us don't have access to the science. So what do we do to make better choices? And we'll get to that as we go along. Tissue salts. Tissues and salt. That's what I call it, because many people believe in tissue salts. They bath in it, they drink it, they believe that it will help for whatever diseases they have. There's no scientific basis for that. Weight loss. Let's talk about weight loss quickly for a little while. Folks, I've seen, and I bet you have even more, so many weight loss products over the years that it's just funny. And as you can see, I haven't used them because they're not working for me. But this is a company that I don't know if they come from Europe or the US, but they're in South Africa at the moment. And they've got this product called True Vision, and it's got trimethylglycine in it. They don't tell you that it interferes with drugs that's used to lower your cholesterol. So let's just talk about this. Fat people, overweight people, normally have high blood pressure, they have cholesterol problems, they have normally, sometimes, 50% of the time maybe, diabetes. It's just not good for them to take stuff that will interfere with the drugs, that will lower something like cholesterol. Then they have natural caffeine in their product. Now, there's no such thing as natural caffeine. Caffeine is caffeine. It's a molecule that you extract from plants, or you can make it in a lab. It's the same thing. And then it contains bitter orange. Now, when you look at the name bitter orange, it sounds quite harmless, doesn't it? I mean, it sounds as if it will not damage you, but what you don't know is that it's a herb. It's got nothing to do with citrus fruit. It's a herb that contains other stimulants that are similar to caffeine, that are really harmful. And if you have high blood pressure, you are absolutely increasing your chances for high blood for a stroke. Theacrine, it's another stimulant. Yohimbini, it puts cardiovascular strains on the body. So, a weight loss product. This is still a herbal product. Now, I'll talk about herbs as we move along, but I want to show you something that's even worse than this. And that to me is scary. And this, guys, this is all over the world, even in the US. Sibutramine in South Africa is a Schedule 6 medication. It's actually, in many countries, it was taken off the shelf as late as early as 2010. In Denmark, for example, this link here that we'll share with you, you can go and read it, is a list of products that was listed for weight loss in Denmark, which is a first world country just like the US. And that list contains maybe 50 products in their market and that people can buy over the internet. It will help you lose weight, but it contains sibutramine. Now, sibutramine is a molecule that, if taken correctly and under a doctor's supervision, you will lose weight. But if you have high blood pressure or anything related to cardiovascular disease, you are opening yourself up to get a heart attack. I wouldn't want to do that. This poorly lit table here is an FDA list of weight loss products. There are 33 on it, and you can go read up on that as well. Of products that recently, this is recent, that came out in the States with sibutramine in them. This is a company that calls themselves the Independent Cancer Research Foundation. So what a lot of supplement companies do is they target those of us who are sick and desperate to try and change it. So they call something, they have something called Isaiah T. It's almost biblical. And it's in a phase 3 cancer treatment. It's a bunch of lies. There's no such thing as an independent cancer research foundation. In fact, you can't use the cesium chloride that's in their product. It's just not on. And the trick here is if you want these products, you need to buy the diet book to fully understand how they all fit together. So it's just a way that people sell stuff to us. I want to tell you the story. It's a little bit of funny. I hope you find it funny as well. A couple of years ago, somebody from Australia came here. He's a South African. He used to be a South African, but he's now an investment banker. He's a very successful person. He stays in Perth, and they visited their daughter here in Bloemfontein in South Africa. And he heard of my interest, and he came over and said, yes, he wants to meet with me because he's got a product that he really wants to import to South Africa because this thing is fantastic. It actually, he used to have a little bit of trouble in the bedroom, but sorted out. His wife struggled with depression, but 2 months ago, she just threw those little pills away. She is feeling on top of the world. Man, their life is fantastic. What do they need to do to get this product right into South Africa? And I said, it's fine. but let's test it first. So here at our university, we've got a GC system. It's gas chromatography that we use, and we've got a broad spectrum that we can test for different chemicals in certain products. And just it's a qualitative test, not quantitative, but you can actually see what are the ingredients in these products. So we tested his product that he was using for the man, and guess what we found? We found Viagra in his little natural supplement. But that's not the funny part to me. The funny part was when we tested his wife's product, it had ecstasy in it. So no wonder she was throwing her pills away. She was feeling fantastic because she was on a trip the whole time, feeling ecstatic. People will come to you and say, but my supplements work for me. They work for me. I believe it. I've had headaches for so many years, and since I've been using this and this, I've been feeling better. And it's true. It really is. There's something called the placebo effect. If you believe something strongly enough, it will work for you. I mean, that was actually tested several years ago by a university in Cambridge. And they had a bunch of patients with rheumatoid arthritis, painful. And what they did is they gave part of them, half of them, a placebo, in other words, a pill with nothing in it, and the others got strong pain medication. And they did brain scans, not just word of mouth or, question forms or anything like that. Brain scans, because you can actually trace whenever the brain feels pain, you can actually see it. There's activation in certain parts of the brain. And what they found was that those who had the placebo were actually able to feel less pain for about 3 months of treatment before saying, yes, these pills aren't working anymore, on average. Now, that just tells you that the brain is a fantastic, powerful tool. And we can actually withstand pain in certain ways or for a certain amount of time. But eventually, it's just the brain working. And with all those wonderful chemicals in the brain, it's actually helping us to heal. It's not the product itself. Is it harmful then? You need to decide. If it's not going to do any damage in another way, keep on using them. So how do you make better choices? Well, I suggest you start reading labels. Now, labels are difficult things because all these scientific names. But you know what? I'm not going to put something in my mouth if I don't know what is in there. And if I don't understand the name, I will use my old friend Google and start reading. And you'll quickly find enough evidence whether you should use it or not. Just don't believe everything you read. You also need to ask yourself, what do you need this supplement for? Look, weight loss supplements don't work. Forget it. There's only one way to lose weight. That's to eat better or to get an operation. The question that I like to ask is it part of the human food chain? Why would you use something called a supplement to food? Supplement. If it's not part of the human food chain. If it's from the bark of a tree, are you going to really use it? Have you ever wondered, I strolled around in the rural areas in the woods and saw a nice little tree and said, yummy, I'm really in the mood for tree today, or bark. It's just not on. It just doesn't work that way. Another question you have to ask yourself, is it synthetic or is it a food extract? If I were using supplements, I would look at food extracts. Vitamin E is an example. Vitamin E consists of 8 different molecules. The one that you see mostly on the shelves in the supermarket or wherever you buy them is alpha-tocopherol, one of the 8. The reason is it's the cheapest one to extract from food. So you get the cheap one, brother of the 8, of the family of 8, And the thing is, nature works in synergy. So it needs all these little combinations of molecules to actually get the best out of them. Another question that you have to ask is, if they say it's natural, what do they mean exactly when they say it's natural? I mean, cocaine is almost natural, as is, we call it dacha, you might call it marijuana. Dacha is such a nice word, and we've got another word that the Americans would like to hear. We call it boom, which directly translated means tree. But we won't get there. If it contains something like magnesium stearate, it will prevent absorption. You won't absorb anything of it. Does it contain colorants, sugars, trans fats? Is it the natural form? These are the questions that you have to ask. I mean, I've seen products in South Africa where they sell omega-3, which is an oil, and they say it's a chewable form. It's like a chewing gum, like a gum. But then for it to be in a gum, somebody must have messed with the molecular structure in order to get it like that. So how do we know it's safe? Now, the problem is, and this is the main problem, is that most of us aren't scientific. We don't understand science. We are very good at other things. So how do we decide? You've got to start asking questions. You've got to start emailing the company that's supplying you. Tell me about your research. Where was it published? Are you really doing what you're saying you're doing? Start asking the questions, and you'll quickly get an idea of whether you can trust them or not. The question will be, are there any good supplements? And I'll use omega-3 as an example because I think omega-3 supplements are really important. And I think that in terms of the field that I'm interested in, my oldest son is an Asperger. My middle son is now 16. He has severe ADHD and he can't use any medication for it. It really messes him up. The side effects are terrible for him. So we use omega-3. We use omega-3 because there are several large studies that's already proved that it helps prevent heart disease. A big study in the US several years ago. Something like 50,000 general practitioners, doctors, got involved in the study. And all they did was they fed them one serving of fresh fish per week extra. Within 6 months, their risk for heart disease decreased by 52%. And that is contributed to the omega-3 oils in the fish. So if you have access to fresh fish, that is your number one. If you don't, you need to supplement. We'll get to the ADHD now. Omega-3 supplements, they do have a fishy taste. Put them in the fridge. Normally, that helps prevent the challenges with a little bit of burping that might happen if you're using your sorry for that. But if you do use omega-3 supplement, you'll find a little bit of fish breath every now and again. And remember, oils can go off if you don't, keep it out of the heat. So the question is also omega-3 or omega-3 and 6. Omega-6, not. You don't need to take a supplement that contains omega-6. We're getting enough in as it is. The ratio between omega-3 and omega-6 has to be about 1 to 3. In the Western diet, it's about 1 to 30. We're getting too much omega-6. And all the positive benefits from omega-6 is really deleted, wiped out if we're getting into much of it, if the ratio is wrong. You need to supplement omega-3 and only omega-3. You can ask me plant-based or fish-based. Best form, fish. Reason, plant-based oils are good for you. There's no doubt about it. Evening primrose and all these other that contain omega-3s. The problem is those molecules still have to be converted from the plant that comes into your body, the human body, needs to be converted to the EPA and DHA, the active ingredients. And that synthetic process is only about 10 to 12% successful. So if you drink a cup of it, only about 10% of it is going to be converted. I'd rather use the fish oil then. The trans fats is another story for another day, and maybe we, if you guys like this, we can talk about eating habits at a later stage. But trans fats are good oils that become bad oils because we heat them up too much. They're getting the temperature gets too high. They actually change their structure, and they prevent our body and our body cells, and especially in the brain where omega-3s are very used a lot in every cell. They are part of the cell membrane, and if you're getting in too much trans fats, they also go to the brain, but they prevent nutrients to get into the cells and waste materials to get out. So you're actually harming yourself when you are taking, when you're eating too much of takeaway foods. How much takeaway foods can you eat in a month? They did a study in South Africa. I don't know how it's with you guys, but that was a couple of years ago, a Swedish research group. And they had all the famous brands that you guys are used to. We also have them in South Africa. I'm not going to name them. But they actually came out and said, look, we tested all these companies. And 1 meal a month contains more than the limit that we require for safety in terms of getting in too much trans fats. You make up your own mind. So one of the active ingredients in omega-3 is called docosahexaenoic acid. Docosahexaenoic acid, DHA. And there's many studies that have shown that it helps to develop the brain. It delays cognitive decline. It's used mostly in the brain, as I said, but also it plays a big role in eyesight. It's a component in all the neuronal membranes, the messaging in the body, in the brain. It's got to do with neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is when the brain learns this new skill. You can eat with a knife and fork without thinking about it. Why? Because you've been doing it for such a long time. It's like natural to you. That is what brain plasticity basically means. I've spoken about membrane fluidity. Interesting, a recent study. They used a lot of mouse, and what they did is that they gave the one group of mice a diet deficient in omega-3, and the others got plenty of it. And guess what? The mice that didn't have omega-3 became very moody and depressive, and really not nice to have around in the house. So questions that you have to ask is omega-3 backed by science? Of course. It's reduced symptoms of inattention. This is a study in 2015 by neuropsychopharmacology. This by Hawkey and these guys, they did a fantastic study to show modest improvements in symptoms. And here's the key, folks. Natural products, vitamins, minerals, supplements, herbal products, etc. They cannot work as well as a drug. They're not drugs. So if you have pain and you have to go to the doctor, rather use what he prescribes to you. But drugs are powerful bioactive molecules. Vitamins and minerals and herbals mostly don't or can't do that for you. Some of the products that are used in ADHD medication at the moment is melatonin. It's a hormone. There's no evidence that it improves ADHD, but a lot of companies sell them, even in the States, South Africa a lot. Others gives you carnitine. There's no evidence. Iron deficiencies, yes. If the child is iron deficient, but you can test that with a normal blood test, your doctor can help you with that. And only then do you supplement with iron, because too much iron will lead to things like constipation, etc., and you'll have a bloated child. Zinc deficiency is linked to inattention. But once again, you can test for it. Ginkgo biloba. It features in a lot of products for wellness, especially, and for inattention as well. There's no evidence. But apart from that, did you guys know that ginkgo biloba works like a drug called warfarin? It also does the same as aspirin. It actually thins your blood. I did a talk many years ago, about 20 years ago, here in Bloemfontein, and I was the first speaker, and the second speaker was a plastic surgeon. And I spoke about this, and I know him, but he sat in the audience, and he kind of smiled when I mentioned ginkgo biloba is not good for you. You need to really, tell your doctor if you're using these things. And he sort of smiled, and I thought to myself, did I say something wrong? What happened here? And when he came on, he said he just wants to, share a story. And he was, just a week before, he had to remove a tumor from an old timer's forehead. And, the evening before the operation, they always come around and they ask, what are you using, etc. And his wife didn't mention that he was using a lot of ginkgo, etc., because it's natural, it's harmless. And so he operated and almost lost the guy on the operating table because he started bleeding and they couldn't, fix it. And when they got back, they actually found that, he was using a lot of ginkgo because his wife thought that she would be, improving his immune system by overdosing with ginkgo, and almost lost him because she wasn't careful. St. John's wort is a very powerful herb. It's got side effects with many medications, especially in the field of depression. If you're using drugs to ward off a little bit of anxiety and depression, not good. If your child is using Ritalin or any of those ADHD medications, St. John's wort is definitely not for you. You need to stay away. It's harmful. But since we are interested in ADHD, I thought I'd mention, because I was invited by the good folks at Pay Attention to share with you, and this is a very recent article, and I would love for you to go and read it. The guys wanted to see if brain-computer interface-based training, if it actually changed the brain. In other words, are these exercises neuroplastic? Does it teach the brain something? And you can go read yourself. They tested it with brain scans, expensive things, and they actually found that consistent training, like what you're getting at Play Attention, actually do change the neuroplasticity in the brain. And the important thing for me is this article featured in Nature, which I said earlier is, in my opinion, the top range of scientific papers in science. The impact factor of 5.47 is extremely high. Impact factor has to do with how many other scientists actually read this. The higher the impact factor, the better it is. So yes. So how do I close this down? You need to decide whether you actually need a multivitamin. If you have children who have sensory issues, my oldest son does, find a multivitamin that's a food extract that can help them. If they have bad eating habits and they're not eating fruit and veggies, they do need to supplement with a multivitamin. Many people with ADHD, somewhere, some reason for it, I don't know, they like high sugar for some reason. We need to control that. We need to stay away from takeaways. We need omega-3, and we need to be skeptical. If we're not going to ask the questions, somebody else is going to market stuff to us. We're going to be the fools, and we're going to get in trouble if it's really not good for us. So that's me. I thank you for your time. I hope I taught you something. I was so quick, and it's strange. It's the first time that I've ever done a webinar like this. You don't see the audience. So I hope I helped you in some way. And if you have questions, you don't want to ask them now, it's fine. send me an email. I'd be more than willing to discuss anything that you would love to discuss with me. So thank you for your time. Any questions? Or Gwen, are you going to come up?
It looks like we have a question from Robin down there. My son has autism and ADHD and also has anxiety to putting things in his mouth. He only eats certain foods, most of which have no dietary value. He also cannot take any ADHD medications because they cause adverse side effects. Do you have any suggestions? He will swallow pills, but not liquids if it smells. He doesn't eat as much sugar as he does carbs.
Tell me, I would like to know more, of course, but I have to say this first. Omega-3, as I mentioned, is very important for this. If you can't swallow omega-3, they're normally soft gels. What we used to do is we actually opened the gel and pressed the oil into whatever food they like, and it sort of disappears in the taste of food. And if the temperature of the meal isn't too high, the oil will won't get damaged. So when I mean too high, now I don't know Fahrenheit that well, but it mustn't be boiling. It mustn't be at 100 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, Gwen. Sorry for that, but I mean just put it into a meal where it sort of can disappear in the time. My eldest son is exactly the same. Exactly the same. Doesn't eat hot foods, only warm. Warm is good as long as the smell is not there. And yeah, give it a go. It'll help. I would suggest using different omega-3 supplements, because some of them contain more fish oil than others. Try and get a more pure one. Now that's another story, because in South Africa recently a group of scientists tested more than 60 omega-3 supplements, and they found that less than 10% of them contain the amount of DHA and EPA on the label. So find a company that's credible, that's been around, that's not a fly-by-night, and try their supplements. Maybe the smell wouldn't put him off, or the taste. But it's a struggle, and there are no easy solutions for this, Robin. Unfortunately, I wish I could give you one. It's a trial and error thing.
All right, great. Thank you so much. And I will include Deon's email address. So if you did have questions you weren't able to ask during the webinar, you'll be able to follow up with him. Thank you so much, Deon. We appreciate your time and giving us this great information. Everyone else who's here, if you have any questions about supplements or upcoming webinars regarding Play Attention, feel free to reach out to us. Thanks, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Good evening, guys.